Hi everyone, Trina Phoenix here, and we're going to do 4.8 I'm going to show you guys the book again because many have asked. This is the book we're reading from, and it's by Tricia McCannon. So we were going into more of connecting and calling down the goddess in the book, and I'm not going to read all of this, but it was about letting go and reconnecting to your internal wisdom and the creative forces that are within you that are directly connected to the mother goddess, which is, the way I see the feminine is literally she's mother matter. So all that we see in matter would be the expression of the image formed through father that mother is expressing. So basically we are feminine because we're matter. So we're expressing a form from father manifested through mother. So that's how it's been shown to me, and that's why I've always known that they're so intimately connected, that they're the same they're different aspects of the same being. So it's such a huge big thing to wrap your brain around and to get out of the only father part, because if you look at anything as only one way, it's not whole. So when we look at creation, we need to start to see that there's two sides of creation and they're working as one body. So that's how I see it, and that's truly when you come into this realization, that's when you're deactivated as the Christ, because you're using both parts of your faculties and both parts of your mind simultaneously in unity. And this next part I wanted to read was on page 402, and it's called Pulling Back the Veils of Isis. But before I did that, Shasta and the group of women in this story, they all did ceremony and they pulled names out of a shell, claiming which goddess that they would be picking, and they would be associated with that goddess. And Trisha picked Isis, the Queen of Heaven, the goddess of creation. So that was her goddess that she pulled. And so we will begin with pulling back the veils of Isis. In the ancient mysteries, this process of seeing the eternal behind the ephemeral world is called pulling back the veils of Isis. These veils are a metaphor for the millions of forms that conceal the numerous realms of light that form the true nature of the world. Through nature, we can discover the numinous world of the sacred at the very heart of creation itself. The original Aramaic version of the Lord's Prayer, translated so beautifully by Neil Douglas Klotz, and published in a little jewel of a book called The Prayers of the Cosmos. And it reads, O birther, father, mother of the cosmos, focus your light within us. Make it useful. Create your reign of unity now. Your one desire then acts with ours. As in all light, so in all forms. Grant what we need each day in bread and insight. Loose the cords of mistakes binding us, as we release the strands we hold of others' guilt. Don't let surface things delude us, but free us from what holds us back. From you is born all ruling will, the power and the life to do, the song that beautifies all, from age to age it renews. Truly power of these statements may be the ground form which all actions grow. Amen. Truly, power to these statements. May the ground from which all my actions grow. They may be the ground from which all my actions grow. Interesting. So they're saying that's one of the original translations of the Lord's Prayer. Okay. In Ishtar's story, she descends into the world of shadows to gain the one thing she most needs, her other half. But having lost her memory, she no longer recalls what she is searching for. However, as she stands before the throne of her half-sister, the Queen of Shadows, she is able to see the beauty behind the worlds of matter. And seeing this, she embraces the shadow, knowing that all expressions of duality are a part of the divine pattern of life. Through suffering, we learn compassion. Through limitation, we learn choice. Through pain, we choose a better path. With this one act of integration and surrender, Ishtar unites the positive and negative aspects of herself, uniting her mortal and immortal natures. This is the way of wisdom, and this decision sets her free. This is the key. It's the key to marry both parts of yourself, not to judge or condemn the parts of yourself that might be sitting in the shadows, to actually embrace them and see their value and see their beauty and see the wisdom, see the protection, see the struggle, and see all of it for what it is. And when you can come into that balance and not hold it in judgment or guilt or shame, that's when you're free. So that's hard though, because we are our own worst critics and our own hardest judgers. So we got to learn to love ourselves. Even the parts that aren't pretty and aren't beautiful, love them. Love them, because the other aspect of that is beauty. They're the same energy. They're just vibrating at a different rate. So the potential for beauty to come out of that is always there. So this is where we have to get into. And through that, you lose judgment in the pull and push of absolutes, because you start to see that they both exist in the same potential. And what we choose and what we feel about, we will bring about. So the potentials are literally, they're unending. And we've been very focused to sit into the fear programs and the more negative programs. Even our speech patterns were given to us in a negative form and connotation. So everything is in reversal to where we want it to be. But when you know this, you can start to direct your consciousness and direct what you feel about. And through that, you're inputting into the matrix that frequency and that reality. And many people, they easily attrain with positive vibrations rather than the shadow and the darker vibrations. So we push forward by guiding and directing the way we feel and the way we think, and letting go of all of it, and just knowing it's all here to experience all of it. So all of it has to be here, and we all signed up to experience different parts of it, and that means dark and light. So we're experiencing the shadow world just as everyone else is, and part of coming in is we have to forget who we are. And the goal is to remember, and we're doing that together, a little bit at a time, and growing more fuller in our knowledge of ourselves every day. And this is, I believe, truly the key to freedom and choice, because you're reclaiming your sovereignty, and you know that nobody can rule over you but you. And if anything is condemning you, it's yourself. So these battles that we will face when we leave our flesh will be with own aspects of our being. They will be you. So fear not, and love them, and hug them, and say, it's okay. Sometimes we make mistakes. That's what happens when you go to earth. It's all right. And love each other through it. It's the greatest gift you can give to any part of yourself or any part of this construct is learning how to love ourselves, because this is our deficit right now. And we are connecting to that, and it's going to make a powerful change upon this planet. So the modern hero is the ancient one. Many of our modern myths play out of these same transcendental themes of reconciling the light and the dark within ourselves. In Star Wars, Luke Skywalker faces his shadow by discovering that he is the son of the evil Darth Vader. When Luke cuts off the head of his enemy in Yoda's cave, he discovers that the enemy that he has killed wears his own face. This theme is repeated when Luke loses his hand, just as his father did. Following in Darth Vader's footsteps, both Luke and Darth Vader have the same spiritual gifts, but one uses his powers for good, while the other uses the gifts for evil. As the first movie trilogy concludes, Darth Vader is redeemed only through Luke's unswerving belief that below the shadow of his father lies a heart that is the eternal illumined soul, waiting to be reawakened. Likewise, in the Harry Potter series, Harry finds a fragment of Lord Voldemort's soul buried deep within him, and he realizes that this enemy can only be vanquished when Harry is willing to be the pure, surrendered sacrifice. The hero is the man of self-achieved submission, writes Joseph Campbell. This is the theme of the Christ, the theme espoused in the ancient world of the celebrations of Tammuz, Osiris, Atius, and Adonais. At their deaths, these solar lords surrendered to death and then are reborn. In Harry's case, he goes to heaven. He meets his teacher, Dumbledore, who explains that Harry has a choice to continue in the higher worlds or to return to Earth to complete his mission. His voluntary act of egoic surrender gives Harry the power to be reborn, then to vanquish the Dark Lord forever. One of these reasons that these modern-day myths are so compelling is that they reveal the great archetype of truth. In dissolving the judgments, shame, and guilt that often trap us in this world, we set ourselves free. The hero has died as a modern man, but as the eternal man, perfected, unspecific, universal man, he has been reborn, writes Joseph Campbell. In Ishtar's story, by releasing the judgments in the realms of shadow and seeing the goddess behind all forms, Ishtar is able to unite her ego and soul. With this, she is brought back into union with her other half and is allowed to re-enter heaven. This is the essence of the hero's journey and the deeper meaning of redemption. And this is what Christ speaks of when he says you must marry the two. You must make the two one. This is what he's speaking of. This is the true meaning of those teachings. To be reborn, we have to do that. We have to unite the ego and the soul. Fairy tales of oneness. Ishtar's journey is one of a handful of myths that speaks to this dilemma of separation and redemption in the world of shadows, often immortalized as fairy tales. These stories echo through the corridors of time. The most enduring of these tales seems to express two major themes. The first is the reconciliation between the worlds of spirit and the worlds of matter. The second is the merger of the male and the female in sacred union. The prince searches for his princess. The princess searches for her prince. He saves her, and she saves him. Once reunited, they live happily ever after within the kingdom of themselves. So let's take a look now at some of the beautiful archetypal tales that have endured through time. We begin with the story of Sleeping Beauty, a beautiful princess whose kingdom is frozen in time and is brought back to life by the noble prince who has the courage to search for her. She represents the sleeping spirit that is hidden inside each one of us. She is Sophia, the feminine spirit, caught in suspended animation, who must be awakened by her illumined other half. Likewise, the story of Snow White, we find an unembellished heroine who has fled from the machinations of the wicked queen, a woman herself trapped in vanity and illusions. Snow White is the positive feminine polarity, while the queen is the negative. But in order to be saved, she must be awakened by her heroic prince. In essence, she must reclaim both her yin and her yang natures and be resurrected to win her kingdom back for the good. In a similar vein, let's examine the story of Cinderella, an abused maiden who is the slave of 3 women who have been overtaken by their negative feminine polarity of greed, ambition, and lies. Cinderella must find the courage to take back her power, and by being seen at the ball by the noble prince, then, if he is willing to see past the trappings of appearances to discover her true self, he will marry her and restore her to the throne as his equal. Then they will live happily ever after. Likewise, in the story of Rapunzel, a magical maiden who has been subject to a lifetime of isolation and forgetfulness within her ivory tower. The heroine is finally rescued by an aspect of the positive masculine. All of these stories reveal how the masculine polarity has the power to reawaken the feminine spirit within the world that has been dormant within us for so long. All of these tales are of restoration, symbols of the sacred marriage that restores the rightful queen as an equal beside her noble king. Only this has the power to save the world. As you notice in many of these fairy tales, the prince rescues the princess, but in the case of Ishtar, these positions are reversed. Ishtar goes in search of her slain prince, trying to free her other half from bondage. She is the heroine who rescues the man, just as in the story of Beauty and the Beast. Beauty is the divine feminine who awakens the heart of the savage beast. He is only restored to his divine form after he places the love of others over his own selfish needs, finally breaking the spell that has kept them bound. All of these tales are about the restoration of the world through the sacred feminine. As the knights of the Round Table searched for the Holy Grail, they knew that they were pursuing the lost bride, furiously seeking to stop the oncoming darkness of the Middle Ages by recovering the soul of the goddess. This was symbolized by the Holy Grail itself. These knights lived between 500 and 600 CE, just as the church began to seriously suppress the worship of the goddess across all of Europe. It was in the same era, beginning in 591 CE, that the Pope inveighed against Mary Magdalene, a branding and branding her falsely as a prostitute. After that, the truth of the female Christ was lost to us for centuries. The only aspect that remained was the worship of the obedient Mother Mary. The resurrection of the goddess appeared briefly in the many teachings of the Cathars, the Knights Templars, and the troubadours of love in the 12th and 13th centuries. I have a lineage of this Knights Templar stuff. It's in my codes, and I have access to some of these memories. And this is why I have the symbol of the fleur-de-lis on my wrist, because it's the symbol of the activation of the Holy Trinity through the Grail. So I've always had some type of an innate drawing to this Templar stuff. And the Templar stories, you know, there's two sides to every story. So, you know, there's the Templars that went rogue, and then there's the Templars that stayed true. Just like Darth Vader and Luke, and just like all the others. You're going to see both within the fractal. The fractal of that expression, or that character, is going to have two aspects of it. And they're both going to be present in the role of the play that's being utilized at that time. So, the Knights Templar, they were the ones who died for this knowledge, trying to preserve it. They were the forerunners in it, with it. The Cathars and the Inquisitions, they got a lot. They got the rest of them out in that time. But this was all of our goddess worship, our harvest, our seasons, our planting seasons, all of this nature worship that we had done for thousands of years. And a lot of this was, you know, goddess worship, with the divine feminine being the creator of all matter, because they had this foundation in their belief system. So they understood the mother and the father worked together as one, producing the Christ, which is life. So this was what we were trying to hold on to, and many, 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 many died for this. So in the 12th and 13th centuries, they were all but wiped out. Once again, in the 6th centuries of the Inquisition. Yet as the Holy Grail stories reveal, the Fisher King, or the male Christ, cannot be made whole without his queen or sacred chalice. Without the yin, the yang cannot be healed. The land is barren. The mare will not foal. This is why we're seeing all the infertility too. It's being done, and it's also a part of the divine feminine being crushed. Only her restoration can restore the kingdom to balance. Interestingly enough, this same analogy was used by Jesus in the metaphor of the bride and the bridegroom. Yes. This union within the self allows us to enter into the kingdom of heaven. Code words for our reunion with the source of all being. Christ is the enlightened bridegroom, but who is his lost bride? She is the slumbering spirit that lies within each one of us. We are the Jesus. He is us. The spirit of that is inside of us, and it needs to be awakened. She is the slumbering spirit that lies within each one of us, concealed by the patriarchy, or male-dominated systems. These mythical legends have long endured, precisely because of their themes of sacred union. And we must begin this reawakening of the divine. And if we are ever to restore our own societies to health and balance. 3 stages of the journey. This is where we're going to go into next. It will be into the hero's journey and the 3 stages of it. So I hope you guys are liking this information. I love it. I think it's beautiful and it's true. And a deep part of me has always known this. And it's like the more I'm starting to learn about this, my spirit guide, the Lord, my whole life when I was little. It's so funny. I wonder if that is Sophia. Because the way they showed it to me as I got older and I could start to comprehend more of what they were trying to show me. They showed me that God is invisible. And when God was all, and it was unseen in its fullness, it's kind of like God went into amnesia because it couldn't know anything because it was everything at the same time. So in its desire to want to know itself, it produced the image of the Lord, which is, I think, the anthropos. And that anthropos is in the image of Jesus. And that's why you see a whole bunch of art that Jesus almost looks feminine in the artwork. You see him always wearing a gown, and he looks masculine and feminine in a lot of the old artwork. This is why. And this is why Mary might have been John, because she was also going to be expressing her more masculine attributes in this whole dichotomy of trying to hide and suppress the union of the masculine and feminine, and how when they come together, when two or more come together in my name. This is why, if you can combine the divine and masculine within you, and your partner can unite the divine masculine and feminine with them, when those two unified wholes come together, it creates the sacred four. And the sacred four is like, from what they showed me, it's like the most powerful creation point, because all things necessary to create well and create without error are present. When you're creating with part of your connections not giving the input to you through these systems, you're creating out of balance or not in total fullness. That's kind of the best way I can try to explain how they were showing that to me. So when you understand that you are both, and you start to tap into the subconscious part of you, which is more the divine feminine, and you start to pay a lot of attention to intuition, those nudges, the spirit coming at you, and you can merge that with the subconscious, and that merging creates alchemy in your body. It literally, that's why they show you, it creates the trifold flame. It activates the Trinity. So this is literally what this does, and it's not hard. We've been kept from this because we're always getting our information from out. But when we go in, and we go in and connect, this is how you hear all of these parts of yourself. And when they're both able to communicate through you in agreement and intention for you to hear all of this that is you, this is how you enter the kingdom of heaven. Because when you can get the Father and the Mother, the two become one, it activates the pillar of light within you, which is the anointing of Christ. And that's within you. And that anointing is birthed from within you. It cannot come from outside of you. It just can't. People can help you activate these frequencies, but it literally, you're turning them on within you. Nobody can do that for you. You're powerful that way. So just know that. What's going on with you? It's a product of you. Because within your own reality, you are the God within your own reality. And we're all in our own realities. And that's how we are all God. Because we all have our own individual I am presence. And that awareness, the ability to be separate, but yet still connected to the whole, that's God. It's both. It's being aware of the whole, but still having an individual presence of self. That's the I am presence. And that is how you access the Christ within, is by awakening the I and the am, the singularity with the fullness of the collective. So the single and the collective, one. I am. I'm all of it. So this is what we're shattering in our brain, is all the separative. We're just us. This is just me. No, we're bigger than me. We're bigger than we. And that we is connected to the tree, and that tree is thee. So we are thee. And through thee, this is where we really fully can get the power of the I am presence, because when you're working with the collective, you're working with your brothers and your sisters and your family. So that power is potent. And it's when we come together with one intention, one feeling, and one heartbeat, we will move mountains. So I love you guys. We got to keep activating and learning and blending and merging and transmuting all that we see into a new reality. We're going to do this. I love you guys, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you.